So 3 years ago, I was sitting at my drafting desk, pretty resentful about being a designer. And the reasons for that, they're not really important right now, but they are the catalyst for about everything I'm about to talk to you about today. So I'm not sure how many of you know about designers, but in my experience, we're often seen as these unicorns that go off into this world of awesome, and we come back in less than 24 hours with this brilliant, market-changing idea. And while I so wish that was true, because it would have made my life a lot easier, the truth is that it's just an urban myth, and I'm convinced that unicorns started it. What we really are, actually, are a specific type of problem solvers that put the humans at the center of everything we do. So regardless of whether you're a graphic designer, or you're a product designer, or you're a user experience designer, your job is to put the human in the solution for the need of the human at the end of the day. So let me tell you the real truth about designers. This is the best part. We spend a majority of our time being insecure, angsty, and lamenting our perceived lack of talent and purpose on the planet Earth. Hence, my drafting board 3 years ago. So I figured in order to move the needle on whatever it is that I was going through, I was going to have to put me at the center of this solution. And this solution I designed, or solution that I determined, was not that. It was this, the design research. I decided that my decision was I was going to create a manifesto. So 3 months and a bunch of philosophical ramblings later, I ended up with my masterpiece. It was a piece of paper that had absolutely nothing on it. And so at this point, I was deeply disturbed. And I was kind of done with being a designer. I quit. I was done. Boom. And it wasn't until I heard a voice in my head that said, Nicole, design for joy. And while I'm not a proponent of listening to voices in your head, because sometimes they don't always pan out, I did have the wherewithal to write these words down. Design for joy. And I got inspired, which is great for a designer, because being inspired means we actually are ready to design. And so what I did is I walked out and I said, I'm going to design the joy I want to see in the world. And everything I did was moving towards end user sensory happiness. And you know what I realized? That's not even close to what design for joy meant. I'll tell you what it partly meant. It meant that one must do rebellious acts in the context of our gifts and talents. And for the record, it has nothing to do with happiness and everything to do with ambiguity. You see, I've been a designer for a long time, and I've worked on incredible projects and met some amazing people. But what I realized was actually what I was learning, how all the pieces come together to create the whole. And I realized I was actually the observer and not a participant. And what I was being asked to do, I was being asked to look at the things that I designed and how much they created to the clutter. So it didn't matter what kind of fonts I used or what kind of color palettes I chose. What mattered was the fact that I was now being asked to have a reconciliation with my soul. And I was being asked to join a larger narrative in which I was now in service to inspiring human potential. So, Design for Joy is about awakening a rebel spirit that's within all of us. It's lying dormant there, and we just need to take a look at it. And so now, I had a chance to look at what that rebel spirit would look like. And in all great designer fashion, I designed a t-shirt. Actually, not really. I actually just tried on something called Designer 2.0. But when I figured out what Designer 2.0 is, it's the design and shifting of systems, like how humans interact with the world around us, everything from policy to poverty, from food insecurity to education. You know that anxiety I was talking about and I just had earlier? Yeah, whole new level. We're talking big I innovation at this point. And in my experience, no one wants true innovation. especially in organizations. You know why? Because that's where the accountants live. And accountants, if you haven't figured it out right now, they kind of rule the world. Here's the other thing about innovation, if you don't know about it. It's super messy. And no one ever likes a mess, especially the accountants. In fact, the only people that can really handle the mess are the rebels. And here's the crazy thing about that. You know why? Most people want to work and hire rebels, but the thing is, as soon as a rebel starts to make their mess, they're out of there. So most rebels don't want a short-term stint on your org's innovation team. In fact, they end up becoming the entrepreneurs and outliers. And that was my story. That was my story in a nutshell. And I had no desire to stick myself back into the line of fire of ridicule and rejection. Not even close. But, you know this whisper? It seemed to know what it was doing. So, it asked me to take a look at something that I realized. I had been, thematically, for the better part of my life, an artist raised by accountants. And what I realized is that I was exhausted with sticking my life into a ledger item. But the most dramatic part for me was this. I realized that a sadness washed over me when I recognized that all that energy that I had used could have been going into systems and solutions that could have helped a lot of people, but instead I used it to design a box around myself and my potential, and never was able to show the world my true value. So I had to take a rebellious act. I had to bust out of this box, and it was when I started to bet on my gifts and my talents that things started to dramatically change. You see, here's what I learned. True rebels are driven by a higher calling. And contrary to popular belief, we are not ungovernable and we are not self-destructive. What we are is we have a cause, and we're not afraid to use that to inspire all of you, the populace, to tear things down with our gifts. Think about that. And rebels are part of a larger change ecosystem. And contrary to popular belief, we are not lone wolves. In fact, we have a partner on the inside. You know what they're called? They're called the maverick. Mavericks. That's the ticket. Mavericks are mature warriors, and they understand the raw power of the rebel. They're able to take the rebel's revolution and transmute it into powerful innovations to transform systems from within. Mavericks have the gifts and the influences to bring radical ideas to status quo systems and make change. And every maverick knows, if they're smart, they're brave enough to go find the rebels with the game-changing ideas. So, it was that simple. I just had to go find a maverick, and I could be a rebel. Yep. No. So, this is the next thing I had to learn. What I actually was trying to find was a system that had all the pieces in place, and it needed a catalyst. Okay? Why? Because we're talking innovation here. And if the timing of your innovation is off, you will not be able to align the resources or the talent in a way that your system can handle volatility. And I'm going to tell you something. The most volatile force in the world is creativity. And you know the fuse that the rebel lights, is creativity. So your system better be ready. So here's the thing. I then realized I could go light a fuse, but I didn't really have a cause to light for. So about the only thing I was going to do was blow up my own life. And while you know what, rebels are cool at doing that, I was getting a little too old to clean up those types of messes. But you know what? That was figured out for me. About a year ago, I had the opportunity to join Georgian College at the Center for Social Innovation. See, Georgian was well on its way to joining Laurier as an Ashoka Changemaker campus. And we had a talented team of change leaders that were doing a full systemic reboot. And the great thing about this is when Georgian was finished, it was going to be the first Canadian college to join an international cohort of leaders in social innovation and change making. But the best was the Ashoka definition of what it means to be a change maker. One who desires change in the world and goes after the knowledge and the resources to make that change happen. I found my cause, and I also found a place to participate and stand for something greater than myself. So, what did my Designer 2.0 really look like? It looked like this. Me, standing in front of a bunch of students who are going to be our future leaders in the not-for-profit sector. And my purpose was to give them my resources, which was what happens when you put yourself, the artist, into a box with accountant ideals and what it takes to break you out of that, and my knowledge, my breadth of my creative toolkit, and what it means to use that to express your rebel cause. So now, you remember what I said about designers, always putting humans at the center of that solution? Well, guess what? Designer 2.0. My role is now to design this space for future change makers. My role is to incubate and empower those to spark the creative force within. And it was at this moment, this very moment, I finally got it. I finally understood what Design for Joy meant. It's a set of assembly instructions. You see, it's not about whether I use a quadruple bottom line framework for my social enterprise, and it's not about whether I pick Helvetica as my font, and it's not about the practical materials that I use to build my product. What it's about is how we align the human potential to power the change. And the tool that does that is creativity. Design for Joy is how the process of creativity flows through a system. That's the manifesto. That's what's going to affect change. If we have any hope of solving our greatest problems, we are all going to have to find the change makers within. We are all going to have to inspire the rebel spirit, to inspire the artists who are the lone creators to join us, the mavericks, and help the accountants learn how to put the human at the center of everything they do. Because if we can't get the accountants to calculate the human potential, we're not going to change anything. So, it's 3 years now, and I stand before you as a rebel designer with a cause. My cause is to incubate the rebel spirit within you all and teach you how to make that change in the world. Because we need the artists and the mavericks and the rebels and whoever else you are to join us. So, originally I was going to leave you with this. I was going to ask you guys to go home tonight and do one rebellious act to Design for Joy. But here's the thing. Design for Joy is my manifesto. Not that I don't want to share it, but it's my set of instructions. And I was given a specific set of skills and talents for whatever my destined purpose was to be. And it's completely different than all of yours. So this is what I challenge you to do tonight. I want you to go home, and I want you to listen to the whisper. Because in that whisper, that's the content of your manifesto. Make the whisper the drop, and make your life the 1,000 ripples. And good luck.